Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. Starring JoBeth Williams, Craig T. Nelson, Heather O'Rourke, Oliver Robbins, Zelda Rubinstein, and Geraldine Fitzgerald, and directed by Brian Gibson. Now let's start with this movie with the review. We start with Taylor, who's an Indian getting expelled for reasons I don't understand. Then he goes to the neighborhood the Freelings lived at, and discovers the poltergeist followed them to their new house when meeting with Tangina Barons, returned by Zelda Rubinstein. And yes, she was in the last film, I just failed to bring that up. But I kind of like seeing Tangina back this time. Diane, returned by JoBeth Williams, Steve, returned by Craig T. Nelson, Carol Ann, returned by Heather O'Rourke, and Robbie Freeling, returned by Oliver Robbins, stay at Grandma Jess's place, and Grandma Jess is played by Geraldine Fitzgerald. And I like seeing these characters, and meeting Grandma Jess was a fine choice for this movie. And it's a safe choice to stay at Granny's house. They have no TV at the house, but that doesn't stop Robbie from looking at them in the stores as they're at a mall, and Carol Ann meets a creepy old man in a suit named Kane, played by Julian Beck. And I like this creepy presence, and I'll talk about his death as part of the Poltergeist curse at the end of before I give my rating. Grandma Jess passes away in her sleep, and as she does, Carol Ann kisses her goodnight, and she calls Carol Ann as a poltergeist on her phone. Her toy phone, let me rephrase that. And the next thing you know, she gets a call again the next night with the poltergeist, and after a disruption in the bedroom, Carol Ann says in a frightening voice, "They're back," and they bump into Taylor, and they go to a diner, and a woman goes up to Diane, sounding like Grandma Jess, telling her to stay together, and they bump into Taylor, and goes to his house and stay there with him. And honestly, none of this is scaring me as much as the original film. And the plot is not that great like the original film. Kane follows the family to Taylor's place, and Carol Ann suddenly gets sick, and Steve talks to Kane, and Kane scares the hell out of Steve by saying, "You're all gonna die." And Taylor says to Steve that it was the main poltergeist, the beast, I'll say, and I'm not scared. I'm finding this movie entertaining in a fine kind of way, as it's a B movie in my opinion. Robbie gets attacked by his own braces and traps him in the face, and Taylor says they're after Carol Ann, and Steve realizes they're not safe and explains Kane is a demon, and that took 50 minutes of the movie to explain it. It's an hour and 31 minutes, but I wish they said something 5 minutes before, because that could have been helpful while Taylor and Steve are out. Tangina goes to Taylor's house to save the Freeling family once again, and I'm having a fun time as a B-movie entertainment kind of film. Steve gets possessed by the demon and attacks Diane, then eventually snaps out of it by vomiting the demon out with a face that's freaky as hell. And by the way, that was sick. And I'll give the movie that. I mean, it's freaky to look at that face. That's the only freaky thing about this movie. It takes Steve to collect something from his body, which I didn't fully understand. Then they try to escape until the demon attacks them, and they eventually get the hell out of there, and they stick together with the effects looking pretty damn cheesy. They go back to the house from the first film, which is such a bad idea, to begin with the Tangina. Then Tangina helps them getting rid of the demon once and for all. Diane and Carol Ann just suddenly disappear to the other side, and they follow Taylor's voice, and they found Taylor, and Steve and Robbie go to the other side to kill the demon and fly to the white light where Tangina is, and they come back from the other side, and I'm satisfied with this as a climax. There's two curses of the Poltergeist curse on this one. The first one was Julian Beck, where he had a stomach failure, and the other guy that died was Taylor. The next year, he had some kind of something of a failure, Like, he had something failure. Please comment in the below section just so you can tell me what that was, because I can't remember. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.5 out of 10. This was a 5B movie with some cheesy looking special effects. It's not quite as scary as the first film, with an exception of the demon's face. I also like seeing these characters again, and it's a fun time because I had fun with it. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with Poltergeist 3. And until next time, let's get out of the light.